Hello everyone, and welcome to this film called How Bizarre is Bob Lazar? Are UFOs Real? And What Really Happened at Roswell? With the recent release of the film called Bob Lazar, Area 51 and Flying Saucers by filmmaker Jeremy Corbell, I wanted to do a quick video on my thoughts on Bob Lazar, UFOs in general, and what really happened in Roswell, New Mexico in 1947. In May of 1989, a man only going by the name Dennis, while disguised, gave a TV interview to Las Vegas investigative reporter George Knapp. In this interview, this man claimed that he worked at an area called S4, just south of Area 51, outside of Las Vegas, Nevada. The man, who we would later find out as he gave subsequent interviews under his real name, was Bob Lazar. He had specifically stated that he worked at S4 from December of 1988 to April of 1989 as a senior staff physicist who worked on the reverse engineering of alien spacecraft. Lazar would later claim that the propulsion of the studied alien spacecraft was fueled by an atomic element called 115 that somehow created a gravity wave that would propel the vehicles through space. In addition, he claimed to have read briefing documents that described the historic involvement of alien beings with the Earth for the past 10,000 years. So that's a quick background on the story that Bob Lazar told to George Knapp so many years ago. And since then, he's told that story many, many times, and it's never really changed at all. And of course, he had many detractors to his story. Most notably was the late Stanton Friedman, who always felt that Bob Lazar had made the whole thing up. And as we all mostly know, that Stanton Friedman was a big proponent of the existence of UFOs and extraterrestrials through the years. But he just did not believe the story of Bob Lazar. He notably was one of the first to investigate a lot of the claims Lazar made, specifically his education. That's the hardest thing that for Bob to defend. He claimed that he went to Caltech and also went to MIT. He could never produce any records that he attended either one of those institutions. And when confronted with this, Lazar would simply claim that the government went to these places and wiped out any trace that he ever attended either one of them, which was a very convenient excuse for him. And due to the fact that he's not able to prove that he went to these two places, and he still to this day will firmly claim that he did, I just can't believe the rest of his story, which is the most fascinating thing to me, is if Bob Lazar is telling the truth or not. It's as interesting as if the alien ships that he's saying that he worked on exist or not. I personally believe that the U.S. government probably does have alien spacecraft that they're trying to reverse engineer. I just don't think Bob Lazar ever saw one of them. And I will freely admit, there is a lot of stuff out there that really does bolster Lazar's story, such as the fact that sometime in 1989, on 3 consecutive Wednesday nights, he took some friends out, including John Lear, the son of Bill Lear, the founder of Learjet, who was a big UFO alien type guy, who they even claimed that Lazar used to make fun of for his belief in UFOs, before his tenure at L4 outside of Area 51. But he took this group of friends out and watched some lights in the sky over Groom Lake in Area 51, and somehow knew the schedule when they were supposedly test flying these things. But what I think they saw were actually lights coming from a proton plasma accelerator, and this is better explained in an article on The Other Hand by Tom Mahood. It's a really good article if you want to read a lot of the details and his theory how Lazar's not telling the truth and how all this kind of came together that backs him up. I would highly go recommend that. But me personally, I think the U.S. government does have an alien craft, if not more than one. And I really believe they probably have the one from the UFO crash at Roswell in 1947. I first became aware of that story through the TV show Unsolved Mysteries, which was always one of my favorite shows of all time. And I actually had the chance encounter to meet one of the producers on that show named Sam Lucchese, same as the bootmaker, who was a friend of my cousin out in Los Angeles. And I met Sam over at a party at his house one night, and I told him, hey, I heard you work for Unsolved Mysteries. I love that show. And I specifically wanted to know his thoughts on what it was like when they did the Roswell episode that I knew he was involved with. And he flat out told me, he said, I never believed in UFOs or aliens, and I thought that if anyone did, that they were out of their mind. But when we went there to Roswell and did the interviews with those people, such as Jesse Marcel Jr., and I met them and talked to them and heard their stories, he said that I 100% believe every one of them. And after doing that, I firmly believe that what they're saying is true and that there was an alien spacecraft that crashed in Roswell, New Mexico in 1947. And that blew me away. I mean, this was a cool guy. He had a serious job. And he said, just his mouth to my ears that he believed it after doing that. And that was a good time when they did that show because some of those people were still alive. I know Jesse Marcel Jr. just passed away recently. Jesse Marcel Jr. was obviously the son of Major Jesse Marcel, who was one of the first people on the crash site at Roswell, and who famously took home some of the wreckage debris and brought it back home and showed his family. Actually, woke them up. I think it was 3 in the morning, really late, and Jesse Jr. vividly could remember at age 11 his father waking them up and something really important had happened, and he had all this debris spread out over the kitchen table from the spacecraft wreckage. And Jesse vividly remembers there being a small I-beam that looked like it was made out of metal and had a purple hue to it. And just the day after his father brought home this space wreckage material, Jesse Jr. even drew a sketch of it and what some of the symbols look like, which are shown here. And in addition to the interview they did with Jesse Marcel Jr., they also interviewed Loretta Proctor, who her and her husband were in Roswell back in 1947 and were the first people that the rancher Mac Brazel took some of the debris material over to their house for them to look at. And they saw it, looked at the material, and said whatever other people said about it, how the metal could be crumpled up and it would immediately go back to its original shape. There was something that resembled a type of wood. Everybody's that saw this material, there's not many, but the ones that did all pretty much agreed on what it looked like and the properties of it. Loretta Proctor later, regretted that they didn't go look at the crash site after Mac Brazel invited them to do so. I think they had farm work to do or something along those lines, and always regretted the day they didn't go look at it. But they vividly recall the day that Mac Brazel came over to their house, which I think was Mac Brazel's nearest neighbor, and about 5 miles away. And they vividly recall the day that he came over and showed them this stuff and how strange it was. So those are just two of the people they talked to when they did that Unsolved Mysteries episode, which were just very believable. You can find that episode on YouTube. I think they did a couple on Roswell, and they're excellent. And I believe those people just as Sam did. And further bolstering my personal belief in the existence of UFOs is I saw one myself back in 1991 in the city limits of Houston, Texas, in a pretty densely populated area. I was with two friends. We came back one evening. It was about 7:30 p.m. and it was dusk. And my friend looked up and he said, "Hey man, look at that. It's a shooting star." And I looked out and I said, "It can't be a shooting star. The clouds are too low tonight. It's impossible." And then, just as he said, I saw this ball of light shoot out of the clouds. And then another ball of light came behind it as if they were chasing each other. And they did this for about 3 minutes. And then all of a sudden we could see this giant triangle craft just sitting in those low-lying clouds that must have been massive. It just lit up. I mean, you could just tell that this object was huge. The lights kept shooting in and out of this object until they finally all came together, then shot back up into it as the giant triangle got dimmer, and dimmer. And like I said, this was in a pretty populated area at the time. If anyone knows Houston, Texas, it was right off of Westheimer Road in Derry Ashford back in 91, which was still fairly populated at the time. We never knew that if anyone else saw this sighting, but we sure did. And we couldn't believe what we saw. And just that alone really made me wonder, I don't know if that was something our government had or if it was alien. I couldn't say, but it was huge, massive, and nothing like I've ever seen. So that, going back to Bob Lazar, it's not that I can believe that what he says exists. It's just the way he tells it. And there's definitely some holes in his story, but to his credit, he's never changed that story. Some of the things I just go back on with him are he always said that working at the S4 facility was his dream job. Well, if it was his dream job, why did he easily break protocol and probably who knows how many non disclosure agreements that he would have had to have signed to ever get access to working on a UFO from outer space? And he just seemed to think nothing about breaking those. Supposedly to him to go inform the public of what was going on. Why would you blow your dream job when you're getting to work on an extraterrestrial craft as a so-called physicist? It makes no sense. It just doesn't add up. He also claimed that he would take the bus at Groom Lake to get up to S4. And although, maps that he provided never shows this road, and if you could take a bus on the road, it'd have to be pretty cleared out to where something with the suspension of a bus could even get up there. And those are just many of the things that just really make him a strange guy. And we can all agree that just to look at Bob Lazar and those glasses that he had, he's straight out of Central Casting for the nerdy scientist type. He just fits the bill. He seems like a nice guy. He makes a great guest for a podcast or a TV show or anything else. I mean, he's interesting any way you look at it. He's a fascinating story, however you come down on it. But I truly believe that for some reason he made this up. Maybe he knew somebody that had that kind of security clearance. I don't think he ever could have, especially in light of the fact that just some short time after he was working at S4, he pleaded guilty to felony pandering for his role in aiding and abetting a prostitution ring in Nevada. So that's just one of the things that come out in Bob's background that would lead you to believe that he would never have been fit enough to get through the scrutiny of a government background check. And then if he did get that, why would he so carelessly lose it by telling everyone that cared to listen that he's working on an alien craft from outer space? And to sum everything up, I go back again to the article by Tom Hood at otherhand.org, where he talks about when Lazar took his friends up there to look at the lights over Groom Lake, where he had the schedule to that, obviously, and he might have gotten caught. So when he got caught, he had to tell the people that caught him that he had told his friends this was, I told him there was alien spacecrafts flying up there and not a particle accelerator. So he didn't disclose exactly everything to them in order to stay out of trouble. And I think it's probably something like that happened. Maybe that did happen, and he just kept building on that story ever since. So, and then it just became so large, he just never broke from it and never broke character. I really think that's something that happened, and he's definitely a strange guy. That's all I have for now. Please give me a like and subscribe to this channel. We have more to come soon. Thank you.